The WNBA, the Women's National Basketball Association, is being run by absolute lunatics.
This issue around, trans participation in sports continues to follow this league. Do you have any new thoughts on how it continues to be a topic?
I don't want to give them any more oxygen that they deserve. We know, I've said this before, transgender kids belong. And I think, as we're seeing sort of politically in this country, they found a talking point that people are buying into. And the only thing I ask is that people educate themselves further on these issues and what we're capable of doing when we work on something together. And that something is not used as, simply rhetoric to marginalize a community that does not deserve marginalization.
That's the very definition of someone who's been educated into imbecility. That's the head coach for the WNBA team, the Minnesota Lynx, not knowing what the W stands for in the WNBA. But as it turns out, all that virtue signaling is just for show. The officials at the WNBA are being openly called out for their blatant and pathetic hypocrisy for all the world to see. After all of their ridiculous woke virtue signaling, all their inclusion talk, the league just officially slammed the door on that very community they claim to champion. And things are about to go from bad to worse. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness with breaking news and analysis you're not going to get anywhere else. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. ESPN is reporting that multiple league sources have confirmed that the WNBA has decided that former NBA players Enes, Kanter, Freedom, and Royce White are not, I repeat, not eligible to play in the Women's National Basketball League. Both Kanter and White made headlines in the last weeks after they declared themselves WNBA prospects for the 2027 draft. And of course, this was done to call out the utter, rank, absurd hypocrisy that has infested the WNBA when it comes to their notion of what the W stands for in their league. After Indiana Fever guard Sophie Cunningham told ESPN that she wanted to protect young girls from having to compete against men in women's sports several weeks back, the ultra-woke virtue signalers in the WNBA revolted, with a number of players and coaches making the nonsensical argument that the league should be open to literally anyone who identifies as a woman, whatever that happens to be. And so Kanter and White, two former NBA first draft picks, called their bluff, again, for everyone to see, and said, fine, we'll play. We identify, right? That's all that's required. We'll call your virtue signaling, and we'll play for the WNBA. Now, for me, what makes this so brilliant, and it really shows how much our nation has changed over the last 5 or 6 years, what makes it so brilliant is that Kanter and White were never supposed to do this. Virtue signalers, this is how it works. Virtue signalers, by definition, do not expect anyone to call them out on their obvious rank hypocrisy. And that's because, at least in years past, virtue signaling always came fit with an entire mechanism of severe intimidation. It used to come in the form of cancel culture, so Sophie Cunningham could have easily been fired for comments like that, certainly during the Biden years. But now with a Trump Justice Department, the virtue signalers have lost their intimidation mechanism. And so now not only are people openly defying their politically correct absurdities, but they're now more and more actively calling out those absurdities. If you really believe that a woman is nothing more than personal identity and disposition, then by definition, you must include any and all players like Kanter and White. And yet, those are exactly the two players that the league just decided are banned from competing in the WNBA. And yet, here's the astonishing part, They still have yet to define what the W stands for in the WNBA. They barred Kanter and White from the league as not qualifying, but they couldn't bar them on the basis of who actually qualifies to be a player in the Women's National Basketball League. This is educating yourself into imbecility. This is the lunacy that pervades the WNBA, the single most liberal far-left sports league on the planet. And so this past weekend, things got physical. Kanter Freedom showed up courtside at a Chicago Sky Indiana Fever game wearing a shirt that read, quote, woman, noun, adult, human, female. And during a third quarter timeout, the ultra-woke sky guard Natasha Cloud walked over and started screaming at him. He stood up, security intervened, and he got kicked out. He was escorted out of the arena, and he later posted the most ironic observation imaginable. He said, I just got kicked out of a WNBA game for supporting women. I mean, let that sink in, America. I just got kicked out of a WNBA game for supporting the W. And then the perfect closer quote, it's always women hating on other women. But just when you thought the lunacy stopped with the players and the coaches, it's actually the far left woke sports writers that are taking this insanity to a whole new level. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, let me ask you something. If something happened tomorrow, like the power's out for weeks, the water shuts off, the shelves in your local supermarket go bare, would your family know what to do? Again, no, not panic. No. That's the difference our grandparents had. And it's the one thing truly worth passing down. Not more stuff, more skills, the kind that can never be taken away, never run out of batteries, and can be handed to your kids and theirs. That's why I absolutely love this brand new book. It's called Ancestral Secrets, and it's published by Sierra Madre, and it's absolutely beautiful. It compiles 100 of these practical skills. They're each taught step by step. They've got these beautiful illustrations. It's a wonderful hardcover built to sit on your shelf for years. It's perfect to pass down to your kids, to your grandkids. And it even includes a step-by-step video series for every one of the skills beautifully detailed in its pages. Skills that carried our ancestors through the Great Depression and even worse. Now, this isn't a book where you just read once, right? It's a treasure trove of education that your family keeps for generations. There's never been a time when we were more disconnected from our ancestors' secrets. Their way of life without all of the technology was a simpler, more resilient time. And there's also never been a more unstable time than now, one where we've been teetering on the precipice of complete destruction from a plethora of previously unimaginable events, geopolitical adversaries, artificial intelligence, pandemics, EMPs, cyber attacks. The list goes on and on. Be the one that your family turns to. Click on the link below and join early as a VIP and reserve a first edition copy, signed by hand. Make it Christmas early. Your family will absolutely love you for it. It's a beautiful book. Click on that link below right now. Now, here's where it gets even juicier, gang, because the WNBA's problems don't stop at eligibility rules. The left-wing activist disguised as a sports writer, Chris Williamson, actually went on social media, I kid you not, and blamed Sophie Cunningham for all of this. The woman, the woman who simply said men don't belong in women's sports. He blamed her for, quote, setting the table for all this, quote, nastiness towards the trans community. Remember, nothing is more empowering than victimhood in liberal politics. Nothing is more empowering than victimhood. Liberals are always the victims, okay? This far-left activist disguised as sports writer actually wants Sophie Cunningham disciplined. This left-wing activist disguised as sports writer wants Sophie Cunningham disciplined because she dared to stand up for women's sports, because she dared to define what this guy is too cowardly to do himself. So this is exactly what I meant earlier. Sophie Cunningham is not supposed to be doing this. She should not be allowed to say what she said, because if more people follow her, then the entire world sees how utterly absurd their left-wing lunacy really is. So this is why silence and intimidation and cancellation is so important to the woke project. The woke project refuses to entertain any and all dissent, since such dissent is actually rooted in reality, and reality always wins. For the woke left, it is always the person telling the truth who gets blamed for the fallout, never the ideology that manufactured the crisis in the first place. And the way wokeness manufactures a crisis like this is very simple to demonstrate. Sports competition, okay, this is a little dose of reality here. Sports competition is, by definition, based on the fundamental principle of fairness. That's why cheating is not allowed. Fairness is the bedrock principle apart from which you do not have legitimate sports competition. Spectacle, right, would be the opposite, a predetermined or meaningless exercise rather than a genuine contest. If cheating and no rules and so forth were allowed, it would not be sport. But here's the rub. Fairness, by definition, excludes. Fairness, by definition, excludes. Fairness excludes heavyweights from competing with lightweights. It excludes professionals from competing with amateurs. It excludes, at least traditionally, biological men from competing against biological females. You see, this is what the whole question of eligibility for the WNBA revolves around. Who precisely is eligible to play for the WNBA? And the problem for the woke cult of inclusion, as they claim themselves to be, is that eligibility, by definition, includes what? Every definition of eligibility entails what? Ineligibility, right? As these two NBA players just found out. The moment we define who's eligible for the WNBA draft, we've also, by necessary implication, defined who is ineligible. So this whole virtue signaling around inclusion is a total and complete ruse, as this borderline illiterate sports writer is proving with his freaking article. Notice what he just, or his tweet, notice what he wanted to do to Sophie Cunningham. He wanted to exclude her. He wanted to claim she is not qualified to be in the WNBA because of her views. You see, it's not about inclusion. It's about new rules of who now gets excluded. And as it turns out, it's those who open their mouths and say things that the woke left finds offensive, which is basically reality itself. So by excluding Kanter and White, all the while refusing to define what the W stands for in their league, the WNBA just continues its downward descent into utter woke madness. And I have the feeling that the absurdities are just beginning.